What can teachers do to protect their fire for teaching? What can we do to attract and keep great people in our profession? And what happens in a school community when the principal is not okay? Welcome back to another episode of the Teachers on Fire podcast, airing live on YouTube every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern. My name is Tim Cavey, and my mission here is to warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your professional practice. Today's Teachers on Fire are Michelle Papa and Erin Tashian. Michelle is the principal of a nationally recognized middle school to watch in northern New Jersey. She is passionate about supporting a healthy and inspiring school climate and culture. Understanding this starts with the principal. Michelle is dedicated to continuing her personal and professional growth around the social and emotional learning competencies and is hoping to inspire other educational leaders to do the same. She's had the privilege to partner with Erin Tashian, our other guest today, to promote this mission within her school and district, and has seen tremendous impact on her students, staff, and community as a result. Erin is a distinguished educator, coach, and professional developer, renowned for her efforts in supporting the educator wellness through emotional resilience and self-awareness practices. Erin believes that it is our responsibility as educators to develop a deep understanding of our emotional world so we can create safe, connected school communities that support students and staff academically and emotionally. You can connect with Michelle on LinkedIn and on X at mpapaedu. And you can connect with Erin on LinkedIn, on X at The Mindful Eds, and at her website, erintashian.com. I'm just going to go back with Erin for a moment because I overlooked her Instagram. You can also connect with Erin at Erin_Tashian on Instagram. Michelle and Erin, thank you so much for joining me on the show today here on Thanksgiving weekend. Are you, my friends, ready to light it up?
Definitely.
Very happy to be here. Nothing better than to be grateful to be with educators on a holiday where we're supposed to be finding all the things that we want to be grateful for.
I second that. Thank you, Erin.
So good. Yes. Well said. And I hope by the end of this conversation, we'll have even more to be grateful for. And I'm confident that's where we're going. Erin, let's start with you. You taught for 2 decades as a middle school teacher, and my friend, that is close to my heart, so a ton of respect goes your way for that. You now specialize in emotional wellness and support for teachers. Tell us what inspired this move and new mission in your work.
Well, I would say, although I was 20 plus years in the middle school, I was 11 years before that as an elementary school teacher. So my teaching experience, went across 30 some odd years. And I always start workshops by saying somewhere near the midpoint, I thought teaching had changed in a way that I was having a very hard time managing because so much was different. And little did I know the pandemic was coming down the pike and things would change drastically again. But mid-career, I remember walking into my principal's office and saying, I need to sit in a professional development where someone was giving me tools and strategies to manage the job as opposed to just another curriculum or another best practice. So those were great, but I was really struggling managing what the job had become. And that sent me on this big, long mission to figure out how I could change my relationship to the profession by implementing lots of tools and strategies. And then when the pandemic hit, for the first time, we started to hear that districts and schools and the country at large was starting to say that we were going to support teachers in a new way. And I took that opportunity to really hold ed leaders, put their feet to the fire and just say, we want to make sure that your actions and your words align. And that is what prompted me to exit out of the classroom and take a stab at working in different schools and working with teachers and ed leaders on their own wellness.
I really like how you put that when you approached your principal so long ago and said, I really need some training, some support on just managing this work. And I think a lot of teachers resonate with that. I feel like there should be a workshop at every conference, at least one focused on just managing the work and allowing teachers to find some insight, find some practices and strategies that give them that sustainability that really we're all looking for. That's so interesting to hear, and I know we'll hear more about that journey. Michelle, I want to go over to you because we don't want to overlook principals in this conversation. Principals are usually former teachers themselves and continue to be teachers, just in a sort of a different capacity. Michelle, is it okay when the principal is not okay? Would you share about your own journey with emotional wellness?
Yes, Tim. It is absolutely okay when the principal's not okay, as long as we recognize that and we take action. So the National Association of Secondary School Principals, every few years they survey educators. And I think the most recent survey was 2022. And there was some stark data that revealed that the principal pipeline is suffering. And if we don't have prepared and supported and healthy principals to lead our schools, I really think we're in big trouble. So some of the key data, the key findings were that half of principals are saying that the stress level in schools in their jobs is just so high that they're actually considering a career change or retirement. Even more, I think, interesting is 73%, of school leaders are saying that they need support. Just as Erin said she did as a teacher, that these principals are saying they need support with their mental and emotional wellness in schools. So when Erin and I present to school leaders, it is without fail that there is this willingness and this eagerness to share the stressors and the challenges that principals and school leaders are facing. Some of the common things that we've unpacked, some of the struggles that we've seen are just the student behavior and the changing needs of our students, the staff, that the staff are really needing our emotional support right now and our help, providing help to our families as just family dynamics are changing. Things like school funding and many other operational needs as well. And then, principals are tasked with juggling all of those things along with their own personal lives. And so when we look at the professional standards of educational leadership, they task principals with supporting others. And there are 10 of those standards, and every one of them talks about what principals must do in our roles to support others, which is entirely appropriate. We are here for our staff. And I believe at this point, many principals approach the role as a servant leader. So if you see that your principal might not be okay, ask him or her, check in, just as we do and we want to do for our staff and our students. Ultimately, though, it is up to principals to work on our own social emotional competency. And that's, I guess, a roundabout way of getting to the point that, in beginning the work with Erin, I don't feel that I was someone who leaned very much on emotions, more of a logical person, more of sort of a decisive decision maker kind of leader. But meeting her all those years ago and working with her as a leadership team and with our staff and our students has changed my life personally and professionally. And I've continued to grow and learn alongside her. So I'm so grateful to her.
That's fantastic. And yeah, you put it well. You described it well, the tremendous responsibilities that our principals face. And I was reminded recently that there are so many invisible features of the job as well, and crises that cannot be shared. I'm thinking about a principal I know that right now is dealing with a very sensitive allegation between staff members. It's not something that the broader community is aware of, but it's a tremendous emotional load and a mental burden, and it's consuming a lot of her emotional energy. So hats off to all of our principals. Of course, this podcast is focused for the most part on teachers, but we want to include principals in this conversation today. So thank you for sharing. Erin, I want to go back to you and just zoom out in this conversation for a moment as we finish the calendar year of 2024 and move into 2025. What's your take on the emotional health of our teaching professionals? What do you see as the main challenges teachers face in 2024? And perhaps how have things changed for better or for worse since you had that concern so many years ago?
I mean, I feel I am passionate about what teachers are doing on the day in and the day out. So I want to be sensitive to what I hear teachers say they're feeling, and also marry that with they are super resilient because they're showing up every single day despite the challenges and the emotionality of the job. So I feel that the words that are being reported in workshops with me is that teachers are very angry, they're frustrated, they're at a loss. for, how to manage the job that has, as I said earlier, become unmanageable, and how to support the needs of so many different students, and the needs of the district at large. And I would say that, the biggest area of focus for me when it comes to the challenges that teachers face is not their resiliency, because sometimes I have district leaders say to me, we want to give them the tools to be resilient. And I have to remind them that they are resilient, because resiliency means you're coming back every day despite the challenges that you're facing. And that's what teachers are doing. They're coming back every day, and they're trying again, and they're seeking solutions, and they're trying to learn and grow. What I really wish for teachers, what I think their biggest challenge is to have practices and strategies to sustain their resiliency without impacting their mental and emotional and physical well-being. Because it's the sustainability in this profession that I think is under fire.
Mm-hmm. I like your positive take there. Just taking pains to make sure we say that, we recognize that, hey, teachers are fantastic individuals. They're highly competent. They're highly trained. They're resilient. They're committed to kids. All of these great things, let's not overlook that. And sometimes you're right, this conversation can sort of become a woe is us and all is lost, and teachers are all lost. And that's not the case. We have some fantastic individuals, the best in society, I would venture to say. I want to pause for a moment to welcome Bobby French, who is joining us on YouTube. She says, our teachers need all the support we can provide them. It's an extremely stressful time for them. And she's also on Facebook. Great thoughts to support our teachers. Thank you for joining us on both platforms, Bobby. Really appreciate you being here. Yes. Yes. All right. Well, we're going to get more into some of the strategies that we can share with teachers in a moment. But Michelle, your community has enjoyed training and support from Erin, and you attended her Educator Wellness Institute over the summer. That just sounds like a magical place, by the way.
Doesn't it?
What is one what is one win, Michelle, that you can share from the work that Erin has shared with you?
I'd love to share a takeaway or a win, but I also want to encourage teachers who are listening, school leaders who are listening, and if there's any district leaders listening, please prioritize someone like Erin for your district. It is just changed. Reframed is a great word Erin and I talk about a lot when we do our workshops too, is reframing, just as Erin said, that there is resiliency, that there are positives, that there is hope. And so if we have leaders like Erin who can support us in that, it just makes everything better. But so Erin is so unique because she's an educator. So she knows our plight firsthand. So I think the biggest takeaway that I tend to find when we all get together and have these sessions is that everyone needs this. And once we get started, even the most, maybe standoffish or seemingly independent person, you can tell they recognize very quickly the benefits that come from just sharing, connecting, coming up with solutions, not wallowing in our current state, but supporting each other and in those solutions and those good things that we can be doing to change our course. Our district uses Character Strong as our SEL curriculum. And the co-founder of Character Strong, John Norland, has a wonderful way of putting it. I repeat this all the time. He says, SEL is not just another thing on the plate. It is the actual plate. So it is the thing on which we base everything else. It is the foundation. So we can have the most high-priced curriculum, the most state-of-the-art facilities, expertly trained staff, as most of us do. But if people are not in a good space to support each other, as Dr. Joe says, Sanfilippo, we need to be able to support, to take care of the adults that are taking care of the kids. And that's why the adults need SEL as well. So all of that guidance and support from Erin has just been invaluable. And we all need it.
Great.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for joining us, Teachers on Fire. If you're getting value from this conversation, give the video a like on whatever platform you are joining us on. Erin, I want to hear more about this Educator Wellness Institute. Who is it for? How does it support teachers and principals, and where can we go to sign up?
Oh, I love that. Well, first, I just have to tap back to Michelle, because it takes special leaders to be able to understand that if the teachers are not okay, And if the principals are not okay, it doesn't matter what kind of curriculum you're driving or what kind of, what your mission is in the school. And so Michelle is one of those, ed leaders that is willing and open and cares deeply about her staff. And that's why it works. And so to that point, I would say that the Educator Wellness Institute was born out of like an earlier, I would say, iteration of that was I was really pitching myself to come in once a month to do some sustainability practices in different schools, Michelle's being one of them. And for years, that was wonderful and great. And at the same time, I was recognizing that teachers were still having a hard time feeling fully supported because I was seeing them either during a prep period or during faculty meetings, and they had already just worked a full day. So it's really hard to marry these two ideas. And so my dream was to bring educators, not just teachers, because I had a lot of principals there and superintendents as well, out of their districts into a space that I could create where it felt beautiful and teachers and educators felt cared for. And there were candles on the table and flowers and everything that a profession should be experiencing, and then bring in other like-minded presenters to talk about the different aspects of wellness and how we could continue to support one another in the area of using AI for wellness, understanding some new behavior management strategies, because that will help in our emotional wellness. I did a session on, just the whole idea of teacher SEL, because you can't teach what you're not practicing. And so to the point of it's the plate, we need to also have our own set of understanding and strategies so that we can be effective leaders in that area in the classroom. And it ended up just, really birthing this incredible community where I think, and Michelle, you were there, but people felt very supported, very connected, and it was like-minded.
About the sound bath, Erin.
We did a sound bath at the end, so people left in a very zen state. We toasted with champagne to the wellness of our year. I mean, it's kind of what the profession should be, right? Which is a celebration of the hard work, the dedication that people who are in education offer every single day. And so now the second round of that is, coming upon 2025, thinking about how can we get teachers pulled out again to do a reboot. And so there will be information on my website. And if you want upcoming information, you can sign up for my newsletter. But also finding a way to maybe make this a virtual component, because it is a challenge for people to be able to come out of district. I mean, that was one of the reasons I had it in the summer, was the feedback from ed leaders was that they would have an easier time sending teachers if it was the summertime, because they didn't have to handle subs and the expenses of that, which is a whole nother wish that wasn't the case. But, we work with what we have and we keep trying to fit in the system, but then also, pull out and let's redefine the system a bit for teachers.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure so I understand the issue with substitute teachers and hiring replacements during the school year. And so that necessitates doing it during the summer. But then I guess you're in some ways you have to convince educators that, hey, this is going to be worth it. It's going to be more worth it than just sitting on your back deck, right? But
exactly.
I have
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I was
I
just
have a
going to say.
couple of follow-up questions in terms of where is it located and how many days? Is it just a one-day deal, or what does that look like? So
the district option is I go into districts and come once a month. And that where I bring some of that same content in a smaller fashion once a month. The Summer Institute was held in Paramus, New Jersey. And then in the second go round is also going to be held in Paramus, New Jersey, same location. But the virtual component, which is what we're launching in 2025, will be obviously online, and it will be available in a different iteration of Institute. Does that make sense? Am I clear there?
Totally.
So this summer we did one day. My dream is to make it a week and have various speakers, much like South by Southwest EDU would be a similar format that I'm following. Because wouldn't that be amazing if teachers could really spend time not only communing with other like-minded educators, but finding different avenues towards their own wellness?
I love the vision, Erin, and I can really see this growing. I'm going to be cheering you on and following
Thank
you
you.
with interest as it reiterates each year. And I have to imagine there will be a high demand as the awareness continues to grow again about your Educator Wellness Institute. And if you're listening and you're curious, this is not a sponsored episode. I'm just genuinely interested in the work that you're doing. So let's get practical, ladies. To both of you, I want to ask this question. I'm thinking particularly of some rookies, some new teachers that I am working alongside this year in my school environment. What do you recommend to those new teachers? And I know we could write a book about this, but what do you recommend to new teachers that can help them protect their fire for teaching? Michelle, let's go to you first.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Tim. I think first is to protect their fire, they should protect their hearts. And I mean by that support and mentorship is extremely important for new teachers. And so I think as an educational leader, it's important for me. In New Jersey, we have a requirement where teachers are to be mentored formally for 1 year, but not everywhere has that. New teachers need to be, whether formally or informally, paired very thoughtfully and meaningfully. And so it's important to find people to identify with, to share experiences with, to, get guidance from, but they should be the right people. So that's something that I can assist with in my role. But even informally, I would say to new teachers, find the right people, find your people that are supportive, that are positive, that are solution minded. So Erin, maybe you'll expand on this a little bit. When you say, the faculty room and the things that may go on there, it's a great place to commune, to bond, to share. But I think it's also important that if we're noticing in those spaces, and this can happen in our, in our leadership team meetings too, where things just turn into maybe a gripe session and there's just not a lot of productivity going on. We want to be careful and guard our hearts about what we let in there, and make sure we're surrounded by people who are going to support us, going to lift us up, and going to give us the good advice that keeps us hopeful and invested in the reason that we're all there, which is to be there for each other so that we can best support our kids.
Yeah. Just before I throw it to Erin here, I'll say I like that point about guarding your heart. And something I think about often is I'm a consumer of vertical videos when I have moments, and sometimes when my brain is too tired for anything productive. And so when I'm scrolling Instagram Reels or TikToks and I take in the teacher humor that is out there, so much of it is dark. It can be really, really dark. And some of it makes me laugh. Yeah. It's sort of a unique humor, and we have some good laughs about the state of our profession. But I do wonder sometimes, what is the net impact of all this content? Are we sort of continually reinforcing how terrible it is? Or, I guess to that point, it's important to make sure you're also following some creators who are bringing in a lot of positivity and hope for the profession as well. Erin, so I'll turn to you on the same question. What is your advice for those new teachers out there?
Well, I think you just gave me an actionable to my thought, because I really believe it comes down to self-awareness practices. Self-awareness is one of the SEL components, and self-awareness practice. We all tend to think we're very self-aware, but the reality is all of us are living the majority of our time on autopilot and distracted, right? If we're not sitting online just looking around, because we would, in this day and age, we would look like something was wrong with us if we weren't checking our phones or looking productive of some sort while we were waiting. And so I think that, a lot of what I teach is that self-awareness comes from slowing down and just reflecting. And that can be in thought or in writing or verbally. But I think, to your point, if we're scrolling and we're using that time as a way of kind of decompressing and processing our emotions, right? That's one thing. But if the awareness becomes that that's all we're doing, and we're also becoming aware of the emotions that are coming after we scroll or how we're feeling when we're done, that awareness allows us to then choose a different strategy, or maybe gives us information that there are other things that we can do to help us manage our own emotional experience. So I think it all comes down to a hefty dose of self-awareness in a time where there is no opportunity to develop it unless we're cultivating it.
I love that summary, ladies. You did that really well. So we've got guard your heart, so monitor your inputs and grow that self-awareness. And I know it was a huge question, so thank you so much for giving some really impactful, succinct answers there. I want to ask you next, ladies, a controversial question, and I don't want to get Michelle in trouble. So Michelle, feel free to take the safe route on this one, but let me set this up. So when I started teaching 20 years ago, the expectation at that time was if you could plan as a homeroom teacher, if you could plan 7 or 8 solid lessons throughout the day, you were a success. You were a successful teacher. Of course, more to it than that, managing the classroom and so forth. But for the most part, that was what was expected of you. Today, we've moved into some ever increasing complexity of instruction, right? We've got rising diagnoses of disabilities, IEPs that we expect every teacher to be aware of, meaning the profile and disabilities that each student in their classroom possesses. We are pressuring teachers to offer universal supports, strengthening Tier 1 across our schools, choice boards, accommodations, adaptations, and modifications. And yes, all 3 of those are different. Inclusion and access for all learners, representing every voice without, of course, culturally appropriating and so forth. So we have so many different influences and impacts and pressures on teachers meeting the needs of our learners in a sort of a new way, a greater level than, as I said, was the case 20 years ago. So with all of this emphasis on inclusion and access, and I'm a believer in all of it, are we stretching our teachers beyond their capacity? Michelle, what's your thought on that?
Well, and as you mentioned, these are all things that are sort of imposed on us in a way. But I think that everything, like I mentioned before with Erin, is about reframing. So I think, there's always going to be the next thing. There's always going to be something that is changing about education. It's a flowing field that we're in. So I think it all goes back to these competencies and these awarenesses that do not change. So regardless of what the next fad may be, or the next need that we need to supply our learners or our families, we can handle all of those things. So while it may seem extremely challenging now, this is why Erin and I, wave the flag of what we do, because we know the high need. We know that there are small but meaningful things that can occur throughout the school day that will help support our staff, and give them the tools that they need to manage these complex issues. If I may, I did think about just a few things. Something that we do that Character Strong suggests that we do with kids are temperature checks. I know that our staff does these with their students. So in our faculty meetings, we start our meeting every month with these temperature checks. So there is a Likert scale that I used to use, but I recently listened to Jennifer Gonzalez's podcast called To Pedagogy, and she talked about pulse surveys. So instead of a Likert scale, now I use words to describe how you may be feeling in the moment. So some of those might be a choice of supported, frustrated, content, overwhelmed. And I do give an option for the staff to explain. And there have been such important conversations that have come out of these temperature checks. And then, the things that we are imposing on teachers that we might not have a choice about, they're able to then share what's going on with those things. Or maybe it might be some private issue, a personal matter that's going on with the staff member, so that I know and that I can follow up along with the assistant principal to give that staff member the support that they need to help them navigate through the challenging moment. We continue to encourage those opportunities for connection that I talked about. Gone are the days of teaching with our door closed. All of those things you mentioned, Tim, they require so much more collaboration, because we need to know so much more about our kids and our families. Isolation is not a good thing, and that includes me. So what can I do as the model of the building? Open door policies are great. I like to say my door's open, but I'm not in there. I'm out in the hallway. I'm in the classrooms experiencing what our staff are experiencing with them, so that they can see that I'm invested in moving us forward together. And I'm part of that team. We need to continue to to take a stance of our purpose and give hope. Education is the greatest field that there is. We are honored with the greatest gift that we can give to our kids and our families. So we need to just continue to look back on that purpose, take it from a stance of hope, know that we're going to grow and change and just get a little bit better each and every day. And I think that's the only way to approach those challenges.
Thank you so much for being that principal, Michelle. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest, but being active and present and visible in the classrooms means so much to our teachers. Number one, you're understanding their situation. And number two, you're seeing their work, which I think sometimes that is just half the issue is anyone seeing the hard work that I'm doing?
Right.
Erin, do you have anything to add to that? Again, my thesis is that all of this pressure on inclusion and access and meeting the needs of every learner, it's all great stuff, but it's so tough to keep in mind the needs of 30 different little people in our rooms. And sometimes that number is much higher for specialist teachers. So do you think things are you resonating with my question? Do you think things are more difficult today? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, more difficult and then some. I'm going to straight up answer that question. Yes, we are pushing to teachers towards burnout. But I don't think it's the rigor, like I think about it in the same way as what we do in school districts. I'm okay with the expectations being high for teachers. I'm really okay with that. What I think where we're missing consistent, solid, continual support. And I don't know, how it works in Canada, but I know for most of the United States, we do offer professional development, but it's few and far between. It's on a myriad of topics. It's one and dones. There's not a lot of continual support. That to me is the problem. That's the issue. It's not the expectation. I think we should keep expectations high for teachers. But what I really think is pushing the burnout issue is that there's no support. There is absolutely no support unless you're doing you're an incredible leader like Michelle, who's taking it on. How can I change, the experience for my teachers? She's saying, I'm going to make sure I'm visible. I'm going to make sure I'm checking in with them. I'm going to make sure I'm supporting them. And also your district, and Michelle, you brought me in. Like I would say that she's leading in the same way we want teachers to be teaching, right? Connecting. Yeah. Being open, showing support, it's the same.
I'm just thinking now, Erin, while you're talking and thinking about schools and districts offering support, I think districts need to start thinking about hiring an Erin full time to be in the district.
You're making my heart sing. But I mean, I think anybody, I walk into a school and that's my first thing is like, I can't wait to, first of all, build relationships with the teachers, which is really important to me before I even go into do any kind of PD work with them, because I want to be I want to be the thing that Michelle can't do, because Michelle's also dealing with other issues. Does that make sense? We need to have a well-rounded support system in the each individual school.
Yeah. And maybe a little further to my point there, maybe our counselors, a lot of our schools and districts have great counselors, counseling departments. Maybe they need to be empowered to take a lead role, not just with students, but with our staff members as well.
And to be fair, though, that they are underwater also, I will say, sorry.
Yes.
But they are underwater with what they're dealing with too. So, but go ahead.
That is true. Their lists are long and overflowing. I resonate with that too. Well, we're going to make a bit of a pivot here, and Erin, talk about your work online. I'd love to hear more about the Mindful Educators podcast. I love shining a light on other education podcasts out there. So tell us a little bit more about the mission of your work there. How often do episodes come out, and who should tune in?
Okay, so to be transparent, this was a podcast my husband and I started together. He's also, at the time that we started the podcast in 2018, he was a guidance counselor. He's now a vice principal. And our mission really was just to support teachers with small little bite-sized episodes where we felt, we could offer them some insight, or also bring on guests like yourself and share different wisdom throughout the profession. And over the last year, we have taken a slight pause as his role changed. We had to be a little bit more discerning on his visibility in the podcast world as a non-tenured administrator. I don't know if that resonates with you or not. And now we're looking to 2025 where we're going to start it back up again. So all of our episodes are still available. They came out weekly, and you can find them on Spotify and just about any place you can get a podcast, Apple Podcast. But like yours, it was really just an avenue for us to kind of support teachers in the way that we were looking for ourselves as educators.
Mm-hmm. And podcast, I mean, still love the medium, and
It's
listener consumer habits are changing and evolving, but it's still a great medium. It's a great form of content to tune into when you're doing those active things like working out at the gym or doing the dishes in the kitchen or whatever it might be. So the Mindful Educators podcast, ladies and gentlemen. If you're enjoying this conversation, consider adding the Teachers on Fire YouTube channel to your morning commute. Start your day on fire. Ladies, we're going to transition to a wind down on the show. And for this segment, I like to put some rapid fire questions to you. So I'm going to try to keep my answers to a minimum. Sometimes that's a challenge, but I'll do my best. And we'll just rip through some of these questions here in short succession. So first of all, let's hear about a personal habit or a productivity hack that contributes to your success and keeps your fire burning bright on the daily. Michelle.
Well, you kind of just stole it, Tim. I think my commute is what keeps me going. It's just, listening to your podcast, Aspire to Lead, Principal Matters. But recently I've gotten into some more of the mental and emotional wellness ones like Mel Robbins and Dr. Becky Kennedy, who's she's good inside the book. So I guess I do have a second one, is talking to my educator friends. I have about 40 minutes either each way. So I would say 3 out of 5 mornings I'm talking to someone and sharing and building solutions, not just sharing and venting, but bouncing ideas and coming up with solutions to help each other along the way, whether it's on the way to work or on the way home from work. So that's my hack.
Michelle, do you still use Voxer?
I haven't in a long time. I still get some notifications. I'm like, it's like Josh Stamper sending you a message. He wants to get the mailbag, but not as much as during COVID. That was like our lifeline. I loved it.
Yeah. And Erin, daily habit.
Daily habit for me is meditation, which in my workshops I call stillness, because it doesn't have to be a formal sitting practice, but just finding time to be alone and quiet and reflect.
Erin, back to you. Is there an ed tech tool or app that you currently love using somewhere in your professional work?
I mean, this one is going to be silly, but I'm really loving it right now. I love Suno AI. Are you familiar?
No, tell me more.
It's a platform that makes music and songs. You prompt it with your ideas around what kind of genre of music, your lyrics. I love it because, first of all, I love to create songs for the teachers that I work with, but also I love it. I love it as a layered learning tool because you can analyze lyrics the same way you would analyze poetry. You can, involve kids in the prompting. You can connect it to literacy. We're going to make a song about a character we're reading about. So many things, and it's engaging, right? So I do love it.
Okay, Suno AI. And Michelle?
Suno AI.
Mine's not nearly as techie, Erin. I'm impressed with you. I was just going to say I'm still loving Canva because of the busyness of my day. I also manage all 3 social media platforms for our school because announcements and just, telling our story and Canva. I mean, I'm always shocked within 30 seconds that I can come up with just a beautiful graphic to advertise our service night or our holiday themed, after school contest or whatever it may be, and just push that out. And then parents can see it and they go in my newsletter and everything else. So Canva is always my thing.
So great. I'm right there with you. We've got Josh Tovar, great Texas principal, tuning in on YouTube this morning. Welcome, my friend. He says,
Hi,
Buenos
Josh.
dias, hermano. And he's talking about the Mindful Educators, a new podcast I like. Great to hear it, my friends. All right, let's keep on going. Tell us about a book, ladies. And Michelle, we'll start with you. Is there one that you've been reading lately, or perhaps one of your all-time faves that's been deeply influential in your thinking?
Yes, I would say the most deeply influential book I ever read was when I was an assistant principal. I read a book called Eyes Are Never Quiet by Dr. Lori Desautel and Michael McKnight. And it just talks about, um, it's basically about trauma, being trauma informed, and just adverse child experiences that our kids may have gone through. And it totally reframed. As an assistant principal, I was working with students a lot on behavior, and it really talks about just what happens in the brain when kids experience trauma. And these kids grow up to be adults, and then now as a principal, I'm working with people of all ages, kids and adults. And so whether it be parents or some of the staff that I work with, it gives you actionable strategies to support people in your lives that just may be struggling with traumatic experiences. And it just really separates behavior from the person. And it's just such an important message that I think as educators, parents, friends, siblings, whoever, we just need to hear that message.
All right, good pick. And Erin.
Okay, my book, I love books, so I've got a ton of them, but the one that I would say as a teacher that resonated with me lately, or I would say 10 years ago maybe, was Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett, who runs the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And he really nicely lays out the pitch for emotional wellness for educators, and how to understand your emotional experience currently, where that comes from, because not all of us come to emotions in the same way, depending on our race, religion, gender, could be a million ways
Childhood.
that we've been taught, a million ways that we've been taught or shown about emotions. And it's just a real nice pitch for teachers to realize the importance in their role plays in also creating safe spaces for kids.
All right. And then tell us about someone that we need to follow online, ladies. Someone who's been inspiring you on Education X, Instagram, LinkedIn, or any other platform. Is there someone who's been lighting up your way recently? Erin, I'll go back to you.
Okay, I'm also going to say Mark Brackett on this one, just because he really tethers into schools and school leaders and teachers in really talking about, again, the space of emotional awareness. But I'm also going to jump in there too and say Brene Brown, who, her Dare to Lead podcast and her Dare to Lead books are real. We're all leaders in education, in the classroom, as a principal, and she has some really incredible insight on, again, how to be the best and most effective and safe leader.
Mm-hmm. Michelle?
I'm going back to Dr. Becky Kennedy. I recently started following her maybe about 6 months ago, and she is funny. She's, walking through New York City, doing her reels and her recordings. And what she does, for me, is she talks a lot about deeply feeling kids. And we know as educators, we have a lot of those, but she's more, I think, parent minded, but as an educator, you can glean a lot from what she's talking about, the strategies and how she just comforts adults into understanding and feeling that, you're doing wonderful things. You're doing your best and you're doing what's right. But here's just a few little things that you can do to maybe tweak your response, because there's nothing wrong with the feelings. It's about how we're using them and how we're responding and how we're supporting our kids through them. And she's helped me a ton as a parent. I mean, there are magical things that she suggests that I have used. So everyone should be following Dr. Becky.
Okay, another great pick. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of these picks. And as we close, ladies, let the listeners and viewers know if they're interested in your message, some of your thoughts today. How can they connect online with you, Michelle?
My personal email is probably the easiest if you wanted to chat. I'm always open to talking to educators. I have many connections across the country and even, our neighbors up north, Tim, right? So email me at Michelle M like Mary Papa @gmail.com. But if you wanted to follow me, I'm not too much more on X, but once in a while, mpapa.edu. And then LinkedIn is just my name. And then Erin, maybe we could talk a little bit about our workshop as you give your contact too.
Sure. Okay. And I'm the same. Email Erin Tashian @gmail. I also can be accessed through my website, erintashian.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Social media is not as much of my forte. But Michelle, you want to talk about what's happening in March, right?
March. Yeah.
March 31st, Michelle and I are doing an extended version of It's Okay That the Principal Is Not Okay for anybody in the Northeast New Jersey area. And you can either email either one of us and we'll give you more information on that. But we're super excited. It's going to be a day-long event. We're bridging both of our worlds together, trying to support the emotional wellness and awareness of ed leaders.
All right. Well, that sounds like a fantastic event. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And thank you for sharing your time, ladies, Michelle and Erin, on this weekend. I know the timing is not convenient, and even the time zone issue doesn't make this the best situation for you. So I really genuinely appreciate your sacrifice today. Thank you for sharing your insights. I know you've given teachers and principals a lot to think about and a lot of hope. I love the positivity and the self-efficacy that you bring to this conversation. So thank you for that. Teachers on Fire, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so grateful that you too decided to spend some of your day listening or watching this conversation. I hope that in some way the content you heard today from Michelle Papa and Erin Tashian sparked your thinking and ignited your practice. And I'll meet you next week right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.